This is another first for everybody, having a press conference like this. First of all, just let me start by saying my thoughts really go out to all the first responders, all the people that are working right now, the essential workers, everybody in the service industry, obviously our doctors, our nurses, our police officers. We have a lot of friends that are police officers that are working in the community, and then everybody that has to work right now through this really challenging time. You know, our thoughts and prayers go out to them in our community. I guess as a football coach, I just like to share my experience with this. You know, I have over 100 different kids, and they're from all over the country, all over the West, mostly. They're all in different situations, and they're my kids. I care about them. I care about their families, and I really, really am thinking about them and their health, number one. Their families, many of them are working. Many of them are not working. And so our players are in some really challenging situations right now, and their families. And so, you know, my thoughts have really been, number one, with the well-being of our players and how they're working through this. I think from a university standpoint, I think it's important that we remember a lot of these kids come from different situations. Many of our players come from very, very challenging backgrounds. And, you know, as a coach, I'm just hoping they have a place where they can sit and do their work and study and have a calm environment where they can actually do college work. And some of our kids have that. Some of our kids don't. And so that's been very challenging through this whole process. I know we're going through it just like everybody else in their daily lives, and we're really conscious of that as coaches. Just a little bit of how we handled this whole time that we've been at home. We've been home for over a month. You know, this all happened over spring break, and then our kids did not return to campus. We were all primed and ready to go for spring practice. And so what we've done is we've tried to keep this as routine as possible under the circumstances. And as athletes, as college athletes and coaches, we live our life on routine. We live our life on a schedule. And so, and I guess as a head coach, I have a huge capacity for structure and disciplining my time. And so we've tried to do it as normal as we possibly can. What we've done is we basically meet with our players every day. We've structured 9 a.m. meetings, and we have a team meeting, we have a special teams meeting, and we have an offensive defensive meeting. And having new coaches, we have 5 new coaches on our staff. What we wanted to do is introduce our football. So we've basically taken this last month to detail and introduce our offensive schemes, our defensive schemes, and our special team schemes, as well as addressing, you know, team issues as we go. And we've done that, and our coaches, I think, have done a fabulous job. I think there's a lot of things that have come out of this that were unexpected. I think we've all learned to use this Zoom app. I think we've all started to understand the type of technologies we have at our fingertips to do our jobs, and we've done that in the football world as well. We can show film, we can teach scheme, and this Zoom app has allowed us to be interactive with our players. So very much like we're doing here, we can have a meeting where we can ask questions, get responses, and that has grown and evolved as we've been home for this month. We challenged our players to act uncommonly through this. And what I mean by that is, they're in an unstructured environment being at home. It really counts on their personal discipline to really get the most out of this time. And so we've spent a lot of time together as a team talking about that in our meetings. It has been totally on our players to train and exercise on their own time. And so, we've given them some structure with that, but it's voluntary. It's on their own. We can't follow up on that. The rules won't allow us to. And so all the personal responsibility that we've talked about and grown as a team, the work ethic, those qualities are all coming into play now, because it really comes down to the individual and their dedication to preparing for the 2020 season. Our captains are doing a fabulous job of staying in touch with our team. They're talking to them about the challenges of exercising and working at home. And remember, the gyms are all closed. So these kids are doing push-ups and sit-ups and running in the park and really having to be creative to be college athletes and do the things that they've always done their whole lives. And so that has been very different as well. Saturday would have been our spring game. It's amazing that this month has gone as quickly as it has. We have a schedule in the off season that we've stayed true to, and basically get up in the morning and everything before noon is all football. So it's scheme, it's opponent scout, it's advanced scouting, it's reviewing every single play that we run and making sure our kids understand the details of that. It's having our kids be interactive with us, going over our drill structure, all those things. In the afternoon from 12 to 5, after you make a sandwich or something, it's all recruiting. And so we staff meet every day at 1:30, and we have recruiting calls that we make in the afternoons. Our coaches are way ahead evaluation-wise than we've ever been. And we communicate with players, recruits in the afternoon. One good thing about that is that these kids are home right now. And so we know where they are, we know how to get to them, and we can communicate with them. And we've actually utilized this Zoom function to talk to our recruits. So in some ways, we're way ahead of where we normally would be because we've had a little bit more time to address those types of things. In other ways, we're not. We haven't had the field time to really work with our younger players the way we'd like to, and we're hoping to get that back. I specifically have worked with the Mountain West Conference coaches and our commissioner, and I've actually been on a task force with myself and 3 other Mountain West coaches on a return to play plan. And nobody really quite knows when the medical staff will allow us to get back together and to train. But we've put together an 8-week, a 6-week, and a 4-week return to play model. And in hope that we will get a chance to play football this fall. So much of that is out of our hands because of, the medical community will really have a lot to say about that. But I know from a national standpoint, we'd like to settle on some type of date which everybody can live by. And And then we'll go from there as football coaches and preparing our kids safely to get back on the field. So we're open to those possibilities. I'm old enough to remember the days when we didn't have our players in the summertime and everybody went home and worked, and then we all got back in August and started training camp together. So it looks like this is probably going to end up that way in some shape or form, and so we're going to return to that day when you get together and you start practicing and guys are getting in shape, and so it's something that we've done before, and nobody knows exactly what that date's going to be yet, but we're all hopeful that it'll be sometime to get a fall season in. With that, any questions that you guys may have?
All right. If you would like to ask a question, go ahead and use the raise your hand function on the participant window, and I'll unmute you.
I'm sorry, Chad, is that me?
Yep, go ahead, Duke.
Hi, Jay. It's Duke over at the Gazette Journal. I'm wondering if you mentioned the 8-week, 6-week, and 4-week model. Is there any detail you can give us, or would you just rather leave it at that for right now?
Well, I can give you some basic details of that. I think the medical community from the NCAA is probably not going to budge off the training camp model that we've been under. So worst case scenario would be like a training camp under the guidelines that we've been used to, which is basically 29 days before your first game and 25 practice opportunities with 1 day off a week. I know there's been some talk that if we had to play in a very limited time frame before the season started, there's been some talk of a four weeks, which is pretty much what we are used to in training camp. Anything outside of that would be modified. So if it was 6 weeks, I think you'd probably have a 2-week window where you would get some time with your players in the summer, weight training, maybe some on-field instruction that would not be organized practice before that 4-week window started where you had your normal training camp. If it was 8 weeks, basically you would have 4 weeks of some type of modified summer training and then a normal 4-week training camp that we've been used to probably, over the last decade. And so, one of the things that have come up is that college, there's no uniform date for spring practice. So some of the Mountain West schools have already had some of their spring practices, and little over half don't have any. And so one of the things that came up early was, for teams like us that did not get spring practice, would we be allowed to get any of those workouts back as a team in the summertime? And I think that if we would get a return to play that would allow us 8 weeks to prepare before the season, I think there's a possibility we could get those days back. There's hesitation from the medical community to just add those days on to a normal training camp. So it would be something where we would maybe get an OTA style of workout like they have in the NFL, which is no pads, maybe just helmets, where we would be able to be on the field with our players for an hour or so. And and we would welcome that. I think that's a great option. So if we did have 8 weeks, there's a chance we could get some of that time back with our players on the field in an OTA style of workout like the NFL has in May and June. Having coached in the NFL for 6 years, I'm pretty familiar with that type of workout. And I think that would be beneficial for teams that didn't get spring practice. Obviously, nobody anticipated, this quarantine to continue as long as it may. And so, that could be totally out the window. People may just lose their spring practice, and we may get a 4-week return to play where we just go straight to training camp and then play in a month. That's a real possibility. So we'll all have to wait and see, how things start to clear up and how, businesses and athletic teams return to play. But as coaches, we're preparing for, an 8-week model. We have details for a 6-week model. And then, worst case scenario, we're prepared for a 4-week model as well to get our guys prepared for the season.
Hey, Coach, it's Mike at Channel 8. Hey, just really curious of what you really miss the most about daily interactions with players, coaches, and, obviously having that whistle in your mouth. And also maybe you speak on a little bit how this is a reminder how a lot of us that have our careers revolving around sports, we kind of live in a fantasy world, and we are certainly feeling that how we're blessed about that at these times. Well,
I mean, we all got involved in this because we love sports and we love people. And so, I've before I became a head coach, I talked to a lot of coaches, and I'd hear head coaches talk about how much they miss their team. And you don't realize you get a chance to visit with these guys every single day, and they become part of you as a person. And I just miss seeing my guys. I miss making sure they're okay. I miss interacting with them every day. And that's the hardest thing, is being away from our team for this long. I mean, none of us have ever gone through anything like this. I mean, as long as I can remember, I always had spring practice. As long as I remember, I was coaching football in the spring. And so, it's really hard when you don't get an opportunity to do what you love. And I can imagine you guys all covering sports, it's the same way. So that is by far the hardest thing. And our kids are, they're used to a structured environment, and they don't have that right now. And so that part of it is unfortunate as well. But at the same time, you realize how really lucky and fortunate you've been. I've really never had a real job. I've been coaching football and doing something that I love. I do it for free. So, that's something that we've been really blessed to have. And it's been very difficult for all of our coaches. I've kind of got a little bit of a special situation. I got half of my staff is all brand new coaches. So they were moving their houses from all over the country and their families during this quarantine, this pandemic. So, it's been challenging for them and their families. And so, there's a lot of layers to this whole thing. And, we're just very fortunate. The most important thing is that everybody stays healthy.
Hey, Coach, it's Andrew. You mentioned before briefly, no one's ever gone through this before at all. How tough is it? Have you found it personally, just going through this whole ordeal? Because as a coach, you go past to, prior experiences and then apply it to the younger guys who maybe have not. you can't do that here? How challenging just has that aspect been with talking to your guys?
Well, I think you just fall back on your training, and that is, we talk all the time about dealing with adversity and when things don't happen as planned, and so this is just another example of that. We challenge our guys to be different. We want to be uncommon, and part of that is, everybody gets 24 hours in a day. What do you do with the time that you have? And so we want to be productive. We want to use this time we want to come out of this with a great amount of knowledge and a better understanding of ourselves. And so that's been something that's been kind of an unexpected byproduct. I mean, I've been able to watch film and do projects that I haven't been able to do in years. And so that part of it has been really exciting. We got a library, a teaching instruction that we've never had. And for future players that come into our program, we have a whole library of teaching progression and meetings that are on film for those kids. So we've been able to do some things that we've never, ever been able to do. And I've been with coaches and visited with other coaches on this same format and have been able to gain knowledge that otherwise I probably wouldn't have had time to do. So there's a lot of great things that have come out of this as well. And, we just have to use that to our advantage. And hopefully we're the team that stayed together. Hopefully we're the team that's used this time positively. And hopefully, we're the staff that's continued to recruit during this and use this to our benefit. And that's the way we've looked at it.
Any other questions for Coach? Duke, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. I'm wondering, and I don't have a crystal ball like you, but hypothetically, what's your reaction to getting to play football, but there's no fans in the stands?
Well, I think number one, we just want to play. As coaches, we want to play. I just think losing the football season would be so devastating to so many people. We have a big responsibility in the athletic department, and I've always known it. Ever since I started coaching, I've been told every year that football helps fund other sports. And so it's more than just us. And we realize that, when you coach Division I football, you realize the responsibility you have to every athletic department. And so I just think it's important for our whole athletic department that we have an opportunity to play. And first and foremost, we just want to play. So if that is without fans and the medical community decides that, then we'll make the most out of it. And obviously we would love things to return as close to normal as possible. And we'd love to see everybody at Mackey. But if that's not the case, I mean, we're prepared to make the best out of the situation and the cards that are dealt to us. And I don't think anybody can really imagine what the world's going to be like here in the next few months. And I think almost every possibility is on the table right now. So, I've never experienced a season without fans. I'd hate to think about it, but if that's what it takes to play football this fall, then we'd have to find a way to make it happen. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's, that's kind of how I think about it.
Chris Murray, go ahead.
I mean, Commissioner Thompson did kind of talk about, all students must be back on campus for there to be an athletic season, and that if football is not played, none of the other sports will be played. So obviously football is really important. What is your confidence level that there will be a football season in 2020? Just, I mean, you've been in many more conversations than we have.
Yeah. I believe there will be a football season. I really do. I believe there's going to be a football season. Now, when that starts, I don't know. But I think there's enough commitment nationally by the powers that be to find a way for football to happen. It may be October, it might be November. It might be delayed. And I think that's why we're preparing for these different return to play models. I mean, there's been talk about a spring season as well. And we hope it doesn't get to that. But I think there's a real push nationally to have the football season come off in some form. And I believe we'll play ball. I really do. I believe that, this country has got so many intelligent people, and that we're going to find a way to make it happen in some fashion. I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be different than we've ever experienced before. And I think a lot of things, just like after 9/11, traveling was never the same. I think after this pandemic, there's going to be a lot of changes in our daily lives that we're going to have to adjust to.
And then one just kind of off the COVID-19 path, but I know the Division I Council sounds like they're going to make a vote in May on whether one-time transfers will be able to move schools without having to sit out a year. I mean, that could both hurt and benefit, teams, I guess. Where would you vote if you were given a vote on that ruling?
I'm not a fan of it. I think one of the things that's not being really thought about is that we play a team sport. It's not an individual sport. So when players leave, it affects their teammates. And so my whole thing is I believe there should be a window of time when a player can make that decision. And I think that by May, a player should make his mind up if he's coming back or not. I don't think that decision should be made over the summer, and I don't think it should be made right before the season. I just think it's unfair to the rest of the team if a player's made a commitment to be part of the team, for them to just bail on their teammates right before the season starts. I mean, our sport, we have so much planning that goes in year long with our roster. Who's going to play? Who's going to be our receiver? Who's going to be our running back? Who's going to be in our secondary? That when we lose one player, it really has a ripple effect on our entire roster and our whole season. And I just don't think it's fair to guys that play in a team sport to have their roster just juggled at the last minute before the season starts. So, I just don't. I think it needs to be done in the spring semester for our sport. It needs to be done in the spring semester if a player decides to leave. And then I think once the summer starts, the roster should be set, and players shouldn't be able to leave right before the season. I think that's unfair to the guys that have made a commitment to the team.
Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, it's pretty well documented how this pandemic could affect your household more than others. And I think you've spoken on how you've taken a lot of the precautions the world is now taking in your everyday lives. I wonder how you feel about it. We're all anxious to get back to normal, but I wonder how you feel at the moment about people who are maybe a little over anxious to get back to normal as it stands today, and maybe people who are moving a little too fast to, get back to normalcy.
Well, it affects everybody differently. And, my wife, her immune system is compromised because of her cystic fibrosis. And so we've always tried to keep our home very clean, taking shoes off at the door, being smart about germs and that. But we just have to be smart about it. We have to be careful about it. And, that goes for everybody that has, health issues. So, we take it very seriously. And I hope everybody takes it seriously. You know, so we don't want to rush back too fast. We want to be smart about it, and we want to take key cues from the medical community, the experts that really understand this better than all of us on when it is safe to return. But in my house, we take it very serious, and then my family has to do everything we can to protect our environment here to keep Kim's health safe. And my wife has gone through kind of an amazing deal. She's been approved for a new medication called Trikafta, and it's an amazing drug for people with cystic fibrosis. And matter of fact, she's responding really well to it. And she went out running last weekend. I haven't seen her go running for probably a decade. And but it's really helping her energy. And we want to continue her positive health gains on this new medication. So we have to be very smart about it. And every day is a blessing for my wife when she has good health. So, and we're not the only ones. There's a lot of families out there that have people in their family with compromised immune systems that they got to be really smart about this disease.
Duke, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. A little bit more lighthearted, I think. I think there's a stereotype that football coaches are happy to embrace new technology. I mean, film room and stuff like that. I'm curious that you mentioned Zoom a couple of times. Is this going to be in your toolbox permanently going forward, do you think?
I think it is. I think all of college football and athletics, and not just our business, but every business. I think, when you have to travel to a meeting and you can actually be present without traveling, I think it kind of opens your eyes up to a lot of the possibilities. And so, yeah, I think this is going to change meetings for everybody here moving forward. And I think it can be a very good thing too. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be present to be engaged and communicate, with your coworkers. So it's been great. We've had staff meetings every day. I think our coaches have learned how to use it. I didn't know how to use Zoom before this whole thing started, and now I can get on there and do quite a bit. And as a teaching tool, I think it's taught our coaches to be better teachers. And whenever you have to present subject matter in any kind of forum like this, you learn how to do it better. And so all of our coaches have really improved on that. And, I think it'll be something that we'll do after we go back to somewhat normal circumstances. I think we'll continue to use this with our players. And, we use iPads a lot with our kids. Our sport is a lot of film study. We watch situations. We got half of our schedule this fall, our new coaching staffs. So we're having to do a lot of investigation on where all these teams are from and what they like to do. So there's a lot of film study and time put into watching tape. And so this is a way we can do it with guys when they're not even in Reno. And so that's been a real blessing for us.
Any other questions? Okay. Actually, Mike from Channel 8, go ahead.
Coach, have you watched The Last Dance?
Yeah, I love The Last Dance. That's right up my wheelhouse right there. I love Jordan and grew up around those guys. And then I was in Indianapolis when they were in the playoffs against the Pacers and Larry Bird was coaching. And so, yeah, I love The Last Dance. A lot of great stuff in those documentaries.